From Rambo to Rocky, Sylvester Stallone's movies have always been packed with gripping action and heartwarming plotlines. We've all seen the popular ones like First Blood, Escape Plan, and Tango and Cash, but there's a good chance that you haven't heard about the 1987 movie, Over the Top. While some claim that it's criminally underrated, others say that it deserves to be a critical flop. So let's dive deep into this movie to find out more about it, but not before you click on that subscribe button and turn our notifications on.
I'll do a long shot. I'd like to bet 7,000.
Sylvester Stallone portrays Lincoln Hawk in the movie, who was a truck driver. Hawk arm wrestled for extra cash and was estranged from his wife Christina and their son Michael. He had left them 10 long years ago, and Christina's father, Jason Cutler, believed that Hawk had no place in the life of his daughter and grandson. One day, Christina, who was suffering from heart disease, asked Hawk to pick up their son Michael from military school so that they could bond. Hawk agreed and met with Michael, who rightfully did not trust Hawk in the beginning and was reluctant to go with him. Their journey starts off on the wrong foot as Mike accuses Hawk of ignoring him despite Hawk insisting that he wrote hundreds of letters to him. Mike even tries to run away, but Hawk convinced him to come with him, saying that he was allowed to hate him. Mike eventually let his guard down, and Hawk begins teaching him how to arm wrestle and drive his truck, and giving him life lessons. Meanwhile, Cutler begins searching for his grandson, not wanting him to spend more time with a useless man. His goons try to kidnap Mike, but Hawk rescues him. Frustrated, Cutler hires a lawyer to find a way to make sure that Hawk does not get custody of Mike. Mike asks Hawk why he left him and his mother, and Hawk simply admits that it was a mistake he made. The two discuss Hawk's plans with the money he'll win in the upcoming World Arm Wrestling Championship in Las Vegas. They finally make it to the hospital Christina is admitted in, but unfortunately, it's too late. Christina had passed away due to complications from her heart surgery. Mike blames Hawk for delaying their arrival and runs away to the Cutler estate to be with his grandfather before leaving for Vegas. Hawk decides to meet his son, but the security at the Cutler estate refuses to let him in. Not taking no for an answer, Hawk drives his truck through the gates. Cutler calls the cops and Hawk is arrested. Cutler's personal secretary meets Hawk in the holding cell and tells him that if he promises not to contest custody and leave the state, the charges against him would be dropped. Hawk does not agree immediately and decides to talk to Mike before making his decision. Mike tells Hawk that he prefers staying with his grandfather, as he still does not trust Hawk completely. With one last piece of parting advice, that life does not meet anybody halfway, Hawk decides to give custody of Mike to Cutler. Hawk sells his truck and leaves for Vegas, where he bets $7,000 on himself in a 20-to-1 shot. While the competition begins in Vegas, Mike finds all the letters Hawk wrote to him that his grandfather hid. Regretting his decision, Mike steals a truck and begins driving to Vegas. He arrives just as Hawk becomes one of the final 8 competitors. Unfortunately, Hawk loses his first match in the semifinals, but since the tournament was double elimination, he needed to lose twice to be eliminated. Before the second match begins, Cutler has his men invite Hawk to his suite. Cutler offers Hawk the most expensive truck he found and $500,000 if he gets out of Mike's life forever. Hawk says no, saying that he will come back to get Mike after he wins the competition. His rage over Cutler helps him win the semifinals. The finalists are all big, tough guys who have already won a couple of tournaments before. The first match of the finals begins and ends in a breeze, with Hawk emerging victorious. Mike manages to sneak away from Cutler's men and meets Hawk to tell him that he wants to live with Hawk. His final match is against Bull Hurley, the reigning champ, who has won for the last 5 years, and Hawk tells Mike that he might lose. Mike gives Hawk the same advice he gave him before and tells him that he wants to live with him whether he wins or not. The referee starts the match by reminding everyone what's at stake: $100,000 in cash and a truck from Volvo White worth $250,000. The match seems to be David versus Goliath, with Bull Hurley looking the size of 2 Hawks. Mike's encouragement breaks through to him, and Lincoln Hawk becomes the new world champion in arm wrestling and wins not only the money to start his own trucking business, but also the opportunity to have his son back in his life. The plot is truly amazing and absurd for 2 reasons. One, it blends together 2 topics that no one ever associates together: custody and arm wrestling. They don't even go together. And there are basically 2 plots trying to battle it out for supremacy, but yet they get along somehow. 2, a family completely estranged for over 10 years sort stuff out in the span of 2 days. A feat that's nearly impossible. And yet, if you sit to watch the movie, these questions don't arise, and you're really happy about the connection between Hawk and Mike. Over the Top was produced by Canon when the Israeli cousins, Menahem Golan and Yoram Globus, were heading it. Their business plan was simple. It was to buy cheap, bottom-of-the-barrel scripts and churn out as many movies as possible. That way, they figured if some movies were utter flops, the money other movies made would tide them over. One of these scripts was Over the Top, written by David C. Engelbach and Gary Conway. Though they liked the story, Cannon Films did not necessarily like the script. So they hired professional screenwriter Sterling Silliphant to write it in 1985. Stallone, however, was on board much before that, and Silliphant was expected to work with Stallone, who was also going to contribute to the writing part. There were doubts on whether Stallone would get along with Silliphant, but Silliphant laid those questions to rest by saying that they were both aware of their roles and that it would be difficult for anyone to abuse him. Sylvester Stallone was not the first choice for the film, as writers and filmmakers were envisioning actor Don Johnson in that role. But Don Johnson lacked one thing that Stallone would undoubtedly bring to the movie: star power, that he'd earned thanks to his success from Rambo. Stallone was not very crazy about the script and said no multiple times when director Menahem Golan approached him. Every time, Golan would return with a bigger, juicier offer that promised Stallone more money. In the end, Stallone gave in after Golan offered a whopping sum of $12 million, telling himself that no one would watch the movie anyway. $12 million might seem like a big sum now, but it was a bigger sum then. No one had heard of an actor receiving that absurd amount for a single movie. The budget of the entire movie was $25 million. Nearly half of it, that's $12 million, was Stallone's fee, while the rest covered the production charges. Though the movie was scheduled to begin shooting in early 1986, Stallone began to feel uneasy about the idea and postponed it to focus on the Warner Brothers film, The Survivalist. Stallone was fresh off the 1984 film Rhinestone, a comedy he had starred in along with Dolly Parton. The critical and commercial failure of the film threatened Stallone, and he was scared to star in any movie that was not a strict action film. The Survivalist was promising that, but it was eventually dropped, and he began rewriting the script of Over the Top in Hawaii. Though Don Johnson was in talks to star in the movie, he was dropped like fourth grade French when Stallone opted in again. Golan and Stallone had a hard time getting along, as they both had ideas on how particular scenes were to be shot. It took some time for them to reach an agreement where they would shoot a scene both ways and postpone the decision to the editing room. One such particular scene was the ending. The script originally said that Hawk was going to lose the final match. Stallone did not agree with it and wrote an alternative ending where he wins the championship. Like their previous agreement, both the endings were to be shot and shown to test audiences. It was decided that the finalization of the ending would be based on the test market results. The Las Vegas set was going to be full of people, and Stallone became uneasy over the thought of shooting a scene where he loses. He was afraid that his star power would diminish, as he believed that he had a reputation to uphold, unlike the time he lost in Rocky, where he was still a freshman in Hollywood. Though he did not personally mind losing, he was afraid that it would impact the movie, which laid emphasis on hard work paying off. In the end, Golan decided to keep the alternate ending, and the original ending was never shot. That wasn't the only aspect of the ending they changed. In the finals, Sylvester Stallone was initially going against the studio's first voice, Clive Dean, a professional arm wrestler, but Dean made Stallone look puny, even more than Rick Zumwalt, the actor who portrayed Bull Hurley, did. Dean stood at 6'7" and towered over Stallone, whose height was 5'9". Dean's weight was anywhere around 415 to 590 pounds, where Stallone weighed less than half of Dean. Filmmakers decided that the finale would not look believable with Clive Dean, and talks began with the professional wrestler Ox Baker. The talks, however, did not pan out, and the role was given to Rick Zumwalt. Promotions for the movie were taken over by Marvin Cohen from Cannon Movies, who decided to host the largest arm wrestling event to promote the movie. He called professional arm wrestler Lori Cole, who had doubts about getting on board. She'd heard the buzz about the movie start and die down, but Cohen promised her that it was being made and Stallone was starring. After Cole and Cohen found out that Cannon Movies had offices all over the world, they began planning matches in all of the countries. The tournament, which was going to be called Over the Top like the film, started at the Beverly Hills Hilton on August 25th, 1985. Qualifiers were held in different U.S. cities like Denver, Chicago, Houston, and Spokane, and then moved internationally in Tokyo, Japan, Manchester, Great Britain, Tel Aviv, Israel, and Paris, France. The competitions were held in 3 classes. The Pro class was exclusively for professional arm wrestlers, while the trucker class was open for truck drivers and any Teamster Union member, and the military class was open for personnel from all branches of the military. There were subdivisions inside the class, based on weight. The finals were held in Las Vegas on July 26, 1986, where 800 qualified arm wrestlers participated. The tournament ended 18 hours later, and many recordings from the tournament were included in the film. The climax of the movie was shot in the very place the final tournament took place, and the audience were all real-life fans who had witnessed John Burzink win the over-the-top tournament the previous day and go home with a Volvo white semi-truck Hawk, just like in the movie. The only change in the sets was the plexiglass table, which was seen in the final match of Hawk versus Hurley. The table was made specifically for the film and wasn't used in the tournament. A popular saying is that you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. In the same vein, a promotional team can get people in the theater, but it can't make them like it. The movie barely earned half of its budget, grossing nearly $16 million. Critics also did not like the movie, with many criticizing Stallone's dialogue delivery style and the formulaic plot. Like nearly all of the sports films from the 80s, the movie was about the rise of the underdog. There were also other aspects of fatherly bonding, unlikely stakes, and estranged families that made Over the Top blend in with all the other sports movies of the decade. Stallone was nominated for a Golden Raspberry in 1988, and supporting actor David Mendenhall, the child actor who played Mike, was awarded the Golden Raspberry for Worst New Star and Worst Supporting Actor. Tough break. But what can you really expect from playing a character whose name was just an innuendo? Say Mike's name with his last name, if you're lost on that one. Critics and audiences were not the only disappointed parties. Stallone was later admitted that he too hated the finished product. He even suggested some changes that he would have incorporated if he was helming the project, which included making the film less glossy, changing the setting to somewhere more urban, and replacing the rock songs with musical scores. Stallone also wanted to change the Las Vegas ending to something darker and more ominous and less carnivalesque. The original writer of the film, David Engelbach, was horrified by the changes made to the script. He remarked that the first time he saw the film, his eyes filled with tears at the butchering of his script. According to him, the original script was not as dumb as the movie, and there definitely was way less focus on the truck driving and arm wrestling aspects. Despite all the hate Over the Top receives, there's some genuine heart in the movie that invokes nostalgia to this day. Along with the power of nostalgia, you can never undermine the power of the meme. One particular scene from Over the Top has spawned multiple memes, reels, TikToks, and what have you. You might remember Hawk talking about his technique, where he flips his cap around and he suddenly stops feeling like a man and begins feeling like a machine. Like a truck, he says, tapping the truck behind him for emphasis. This scene is basically the crux of the movie, as it propagates the mind over matter philosophy that Hawk is seen teaching Mike throughout the film. That's a tiny trick that helps him focus. Memers have taken that scene and have made many fantastic edits that are still up on YouTube for a good chuckle. Though Over the Top is hated by many, the disjointed plot gives the film the "it is so bad, it's good" effect. All these factors have only added to the nostalgia of the movie. Marvelous verdict. If you have not watched Over the Top yet, what are you waiting for? It's got Sylvester Stallone, a double Razzie winner, and a barely joined plot. If you've watched the movie, we'd love to hear what you thought about it in the comments below. We hope you really liked the video, and do let us know by tapping that thumbs up icon. We'll soon be back with more content, but until then, stay over the top.